You're a lawyer. You never fired a gun. You never stormed a beach. The closest you got to the war was reading about it over your morning coffee. It's 1945. The war is over. The good guys won. And now, the phone rings with an offer that's about to ruin your life. It's the US military. They need lawyers. Not for some cushy JAG desk job. They need defense attorneys. For Nuremberg, the trial of the century. The one where the Allies are about to put the architects of the Holocaust in the dock and ask 12 judges to decide if hanging is too kind. And they want you, a nobody from Pittsburgh who's never even tried a murder case, to defend one of these men. Your first instinct is to laugh. Your second instinct is to say no. But then they explain the situation, and the laughter dies in your throat. See, here's the thing nobody talks about. The Nuremberg Trials weren't a mob execution. They were designed to be fair. That was the whole point. The Allies wanted to prove that civilization still meant something, that even after 6 years of mechanized slaughter, the rule of law still applied, and a fair trial means every defendant gets a lawyer, even the monsters. Especially the monsters, because if you skip the defense, the whole thing becomes a show trial, and suddenly you're no better than the regimes you just spent 50 million lives destroying. So they need warm bodies with law degrees willing to stand up in front of the entire planet and argue that these men deserve to live. Volunteers are scarce. Shocking, right? Nobody's exactly lining up to be the guy who defends the face of pure evil on the world stage. That's where you come in. You're young, you're ambitious, and you're just naive enough to think this could be a career-making move. You'll get international exposure. You'll be part of history. You tell your wife it's an honor. She looks at you like you've lost your mind. She might be right. You arrive in Nuremberg in the fall of 1945, and the city looks like God stepped on it. Entire blocks reduced to rubble. The courthouse is one of the only buildings still standing, which feels poetic in a way that makes your stomach turn. They hand you your case file, and this is where reality kicks you square in the teeth. Your client isn't some low-level bureaucrat who stamped the wrong paperwork. He's a senior official, a decision maker. The file is thick enough to stop a bullet, and every single page is worse than the last. You're reading about things that make your hands shake. Industrialized murder, slave labor, medical experiments on children. You have to put the file down 3 times in the first hour because you physically cannot keep reading. And this man is now your client. You are legally, professionally, and ethically obligated to give him the best defense you possibly can. Welcome to the worst job in human history. You meet your client for the first time in a cold concrete cell. He's not what you expected. There's no horns, no fangs. He looks like someone's grandfather. He's polite. He offers you a seat. He asks about your family, and that's somehow worse than if he'd been foaming at the mouth, because the banality of it all makes you want to crawl out of your own skin. He tells you he was just following orders. He tells you he didn't know the full extent. He tells you he's a patriot who served his country. You've heard these lines before. Every petty criminal in every holding cell in America says the same thing. Here's your problem, and it's a big one. The prosecution has everything. They have documents, they have films, they have witnesses who survived hell itself and are ready to describe every circle of it in excruciating detail. The Nazi regime was obsessively bureaucratic. They documented their own atrocities with the precision of accountants filing tax returns. Your opponents aren't just lawyers. They're wielding the defendant's own words as weapons. Every memo signed, every order issued, every speech given, it's all on paper, and it all points one direction, straight at the gallows. So what do? You can't argue innocence. That ship didn't just sail, it sank to the bottom of the ocean. You can't deny the Holocaust happened. The evidence would bury you alive. So you do the only thing a defense lawyer can do when the facts are a nuclear wasteland. You attack the legal framework. You stand up in that courtroom, and with every eye in the world on you, you make the argument that keeps you up at night for the rest of your life. You argue jurisdiction. You argue that these laws didn't exist when these acts were committed. You argue that crimes against humanity is a legal concept invented after the fact, and that retroactive justice isn't justice at all, it's revenge in a nice suit. You point out that the Allies are acting as judge, jury, and executioner, and that no defendant has ever received a fair trial from the people who just bombed his country into gravel. And here's the thing that makes your brain feel like it's splitting in half. You're not entirely wrong. Legal scholars will debate these points for the next 80 years. The concept of ex post facto law, punishing someone for something that wasn't illegal when they did it, is a legitimate legal concern. You know it, the judges know it, even the prosecution knows it, but you also know that if these men walk free on a technicality, justice dies in a way that might never recover. You're arguing for the integrity of law while defending the men who prove that law alone can't stop evil. The courtroom itself is a pressure cooker. The prosecution shows footage from the liberation of the camps. You've seen photographs. Everyone has. But film is different. Film moves. Film breathes. The courtroom goes silent except for the sound of someone in the gallery quietly sobbing. Your client sits next to you, watching the screen with the expression of a man observing mildly inconvenient weather. You want to vomit. You want to stand up and scream that you didn't choose this. But you can't. You're his lawyer. So you sit there, spine straight, face neutral, and you die a little inside. After the screening, a journalist corners you in the hallway and asks how you can sleep at night. You tell him you don't. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. You cross-examine witnesses and feel like you're committing a second crime every time you challenge a survivor's memory. You object to evidence and watch the judges look at you like you're something they scraped off their shoe. You make legal arguments that are technically sound and morally catastrophic. At night, you drink alone in your quarters and wonder what kind of person you're becoming. The other defense attorneys are in the same boat. Some are German lawyers who took the job because someone had to, and they carry a different weight entirely. You share cigarettes in silence. Nobody talks about the cases. Nobody talks about anything real. You just smoke and stare at the rubble and try to remember what normal felt like. The trial drags on for almost a year, 330 days of testimony. You hear things that will never leave you. You learn details about human cruelty that you wish you could unlearn, and through all of it, you do your job. You file motions. You challenge evidence. You make your closing arguments with a voice that doesn't shake, even though your hands are trembling under the podium. The verdict comes down. Your client is found guilty. The sentence? Death by hanging. He looks at you with something that might be accusation, might be resignation, might be nothing at all. You look back and feel empty. Not relief, not sadness. Just a vast, hollow nothing, like someone scooped out your insides and left the shell standing. You leave Nuremberg on a gray morning. The city is still in ruins. You carry a briefcase full of documents that you'll never open again and a conscience that will never fully recover. Back home, people don't know what to make of you. Some call you a patriot for upholding the rule of law under impossible conditions. Others call you a Nazi sympathizer who gave monsters a platform. Your wife looks at you differently now. Your friends don't quite know what to say. You sit at the dinner table and stare at your meatloaf and think about the things you heard in that courtroom. And the distance between you and every normal person in America feels like an ocean. But here's what history will eventually acknowledge, even if it takes decades. What you did mattered, not because your clients deserved freedom, they didn't. Not because your arguments were morally righteous, they weren't. It mattered because the alternative was worse. Without a defense, Nuremberg would have been a lynch mob with gavels. It would have given every future dictator the ammunition to say, see, Western justice is a fraud. The defense, your defense, is what made Nuremberg legitimate. It's what turned a military tribunal into the foundation of international human rights law. Every war crimes court that came after, from Yugoslavia to Rwanda, stands on the precedent that even the worst human beings on earth deserve a lawyer. You did the job nobody wanted. You defended the indefensible so that justice could mean something, and you paid for it every single day for the rest of your life. That's a wrap for today. I've got more deep dives like this in the pipeline, so make sure to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss the next drop. See you in the next one.